Good afternoon, everybody watching this video, especially you, Chadwick. I am mainly making this video because I keep recommending Dune Part 2 to a friend, and he keeps saying, I need to watch Dune Part 1, or I need to watch a recap video. So today, grab yourself a little snack and sit down, because we're going to be So right off the rip, I would like to clarify, I still recommend watching Dune Part 1. There's a lot of context in Dune Part 1 that if you just jump straight into Dune Part 2, you're going to miss. It's not going to be quite as rich of a movie. However, if you don't want to watch Dune Part 1, that's where this video comes in handy. And also, I would like to clarify, spoiler warning, Dune Part 1, 2021 movie. Massive spoilers. I'm literally going to talk about the story. I'm literally going to tell you who dies. So you have been warned. So there are 5 key points of information / people and groups that I need to tell you about so that you're not wondering, who the heck is he even talking about? So, piece of information number 1, spice is extremely valuable. It's the most valuable resource in the universe of Dune. And spice is very, very prominent, and there's a ton of it on Arrakis, which is the desert planet where Dune takes place. Spice is extremely valuable because it is a very, very sought after resource because it makes intergalactic travel possible, i.e. they literally need it. It also has hallucinogenic properties when you breathe it in, and that actually segues into the Fremen. These are a tribe of people that are native to Arrakis, and they use the spice for, like I said, hallucinogenic purposes, and they are opposed to places digging for spice, mining for spice. They are opposed to the factions that are basically kind of sort of ravaging the desert and leaving nothing behind and making it more of a wasteland than it already is. Key note about the Fremen people, they have blue eyes and they live in the desert. Like, they are experts about the desert. They know how to literally not tame. I don't want to say tame. Tame is the wrong word. They know how to interact with the sandworms. They know how to ride the sandworms to carry them long distances. They have devices that allow them to call sandworms, whether that be for attacking purposes or for aforementioned riding of the sandworm. Last little key bit of information before we go over the 2 main players, at least in Dune Part 1. And that little piece of information is that guns don't work in this universe. Almost anybody that's going to be fighting has this little wrist energy shield thingy on their arm that makes it where any fast-moving projectile will not hit you. Like a bullet, for example, wouldn't kill you, it would just bounce off the shield, which is why hand-to-hand, specifically sword and blade combat, is very, very big in the universe. You are pretty much only going to see large-scale battle. That's another thing. Large-scale weapons can get through these shields, so that's like, you know, literal cannons and whatnot, but you aren't gonna see a bunch of these people carrying around guns, for the most part, at least. Alright, now let's get into the 2 main factions in Dune Part 1. That is the Harkonnen. These are the bad guys. They are the people that at the beginning of the movie are currently producing the spice, but the Galactic Empire, the Emperor of this galaxy, has given the House Atreides control over spice production. So this is the main characters, and the Harkonnen are very, very mad that the Galactic Empire has given House Atreides control over spice production. That moves us into, you guessed it, House Atreides. These are the people that at the start of the movie are fixing to settle and take over spice production on Arrakis. Timothée Chalamet plays Paul Atreides, and his mother and father are respectively Lady Jessica and Duke Leto Atreides. Now that you have that information, we're going to go over the basic plot. I'm not going to spoil every single little thing. Again, like I said, you should probably still watch the movie, but if you don't want to watch the movie, this is going to give you a general enough overview that Dune Part 2 will make sense still. So the Emperor orders Duke Leto Atreides to take over control of Arrakis and take over control of the spice production. Leto knows and has been advised that this is probably a trap, but he accepts the assignment anyways. He brings his son Paul and his wife Jessica along, as well as his soldiers and advisors and people like that. So to give some backstory about Paul at the beginning of the movie, he's been trained in combat pretty extensively, and his mother is a part of the faction known as the Bene Gesserit. These are like extremely powerful, religious, and kind of political. It's a sisterhood of witches, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And they can use this thing called the Voice, which the Voice basically lets you control or strike fear into opponents. So it's literally kind of like the Force in Star Wars. I'm just gonna be perfectly honest. Jessica, who is Paul's mom, was ordered by the Bene Gesserit to only bear daughters, but she gave birth to Paul, hoping that he might potentially become a super being in the Bene Gesserit lore. We'll get into that a little bit more, and that is substantially addressed more in Dune Part 2. So once they get to Arrakis, they've kind of sort of gotten the lay of the land a little bit. They go out to see spice production in progress, and something very, very typical happens. A sandworm, they see it coming from really, really far away, and this spice production rig can basically be lifted off the sand so that the sandworm can't eat it. Well, basically, the things that are supposed to lift the spice producer or harvester off the ground malfunctions, so they decide, oh, well, crap, we're just gonna lose this thing. So Paul goes down out of the helicopter and helps everybody get away from the spice harvester thing, and they manage to extract everybody, but you see the scale of the sandworms because the thing literally just straight up eats the entire spice harvester. It's actually wild. This kind of gives Paul his first exposure to spice in the desert. He's been having these visions a little bit, but that kind of intensifies the visions a little bit of the future. Paul's having visions of the future. He sees a like mysterious Fremen girl named Chani, and he sees that a holy war is taking place, being fought in his name, and he sees absolute destruction across the universe because of him. And he senses that his destiny is linked to Arrakis, but specifically linked with the Fremen. All right, now to get back to where I said that Duke Leto suspects that the takeover of Arrakis by them is a setup from the Emperor. Guess what? It is. A massive battle ensues, and House Harkonnen comes down and launches a massive surprise attack along with the help of the Emperor's elite troops. So people in the House Atreides realize, oh wait, crud, this is a trap. This was a setup, because they see the Emperor's troops. A trusted Atreides doctor does betray House Atreides in an attempt to save his wife. Unfortunately, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is absolutely evil, kills the doctor anyways, and is fixing to kill Duke Leto, but the doctor gave him this little, I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but he gave him this little dust, this poison dust stuff, and so right as Vladimir Harkonnen is fixing to kill Duke Leto, he says some cool line and then blows the poison dust on him, which gets through, because it's a slow moving projectile and it's not like a bullet where it's coming at you really, really fast. It gets through Vladimir Harkonnen's shield thingy, and so it damages him. It's about to kill him. It's very, very cool. It's a cool scene. It's a good scene. I would recommend looking it up if you're not going to watch Dune Part 1. House Atreides is almost completely and totally, because of this attack, destroyed and dead and completely wiped off the face of Arrakis. But I say keyword almost, because Paul and his mom, I don't remember the exact specifics of why, but in the attack, they are captured rather than killed. By the way, Duke Leto does in fact die. Vladimir is in the process of killing him when he blows the poison dust. That's kind of his final act, his final stand, was blowing the poison dust in the face of Baron Harkonnen. Paul and Jessica are taken onto this little dragonfly helicopter thing, and they are basically going to get dumped out into the middle of the desert to die. The people, the Harkonnen soldiers taking them, know that Jessica can use the voice and manipulate them, so they gag her, but they don't gag Paul, and he is also able to use the voice. So he basically uses the voice, kills both of them, and they take the helicopter out into the desert. So now it is basically the only Atreides left are Paul and his mom, and they are flying out into the desert. I actually forgot to mention, earlier in the movie we were introduced to him, but I haven't said a whole ton because, spoiler alert, he does in fact die at the end of this movie. Duncan Idaho is one of the best soldiers and pilots of House Atreides, who has been living with and learning the ways of the Fremen in the desert for, I believe, like a year or two at the time of the starting events in this movie. I haven't really mentioned him up to this point, mainly because he rescues them when they, I think, crash the Dragonfly helicopter thingy, and he manages to get them out. He introduces them to like this doctor who believes that Arrakis can be terraformed and that Arrakis can in fact support water, which is fascinating considering the whole planet is a desert, but regardless. And he introduces them to her, and then they get attacked because obviously they're being tracked by the Harkonnens. They get attacked, and Duncan basically sacrifices himself in this really cool hallway fight scene to get Paul and Jessica out. So unfortunately, Duncan dies, but they manage to get out and get in this dragon copter thing. They fly into a giant sandstorm to run away from the Emperor and the Harkonnen troops. Turns out sandstorm not good for a helicopter. Basically rips the motor or the engine, gets destroyed real bad, and so they being Paul and Jessica end up near this mountain range, and they have to run away from a sandworm. It's very cool. Paul stares the sandworm in the face. That's also very cool. And then they meet the Fremen. This is not the first time they've seen the Fremen. They have a basically political meeting with the Fremen earlier in the movie, but it's very informal, and it's only one or two Fremen members. But they recognize Stilgar, who is a leader of this troop of Fremen. They're very, very skeptical of Paul and Jessica. Obviously, they're outsiders, and also the Fremen have a culture of not accepting outsiders. And Paul sees Chani, the person that he's been dreaming about. So the Fremen are fixing to kill Paul and Jessica, but Paul and Jessica manage to get the drop on this one Fremen guy and get his blade from him. He does not like that at all. He's very, very disrespected and dishonored by that. So even though they're somewhat chill with Stilgar, this guy didn't like that Paul got the drop on him. Stilgar is absolutely willing to just take him with him, but this guy doesn't trust him, so he says, I want a duel. Paul very reluctantly duels the guy, tries to get him to surrender, but that's a big no-no in Fremen culture. You basically, if you get the drop on someone in a duel, you kill them. That's just how it's seen. Death is seen as an honorable thing. So this guy's really, 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 really mad that Paul has just tried to get him to surrender. He's like infuriated, and so very reluctantly, Paul does kill this guy. He does defeat this guy in a duel. This earns him respect among the Fremen there. Not all of them, but most of them. Side note, by the way, that I would like to mention, Paul realizes during this fight that his visions can be incorrect because the guy that he killed in battle, he was having visions earlier in the movie that this guy was his friend, that this guy was going to kind of be a mentor for him. And he just killed the guy, so he's not exactly going to be mentoring very much. Also, in the visions, he and Chani seem very, very close, almost in love, whereas in actuality, Chani doesn't seem at all impressed by Paul. She's kind of like, oh, you know, he killed someone, that's fine. So the movie basically ends with Paul and Jessica like fully committing to becoming a part of the Fremen. Paul accepts that his path is leading to the desert and does in fact lead to the Fremen, and that his future is going towards a potential holy war if he isn't extremely careful. So that was a majorly simplified version of telling Dune Part 1. That should give you enough information to where you can watch Dune Part 2 and not be completely lost. However, once again, I would recommend you still watch Dune Part 1 anyways. It's not a horribly long movie, and it will make a lot of the events of Part 2 make more sense. Again, I would still recommend you watch Dune Part 1, but it is not essential to watch Part 1 before watching Part 2, whereas I would argue Part 2 is going to be essential viewing before you watch Part 3. Anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you're interested in watching me and a friend spend literally the whole day in the theater, that video is right over here. Go ahead, check it out. Check it out. Click on it. Click it. Click it. Click it now.